Now, legendary screenwriter Richard Curtis said he was, and I quote, stupid and wrong for making fat jokes in his classic 90s films like Bridget Jones's Diary. During an interview with his daughter and feminist writer Scarlett, Curtis says the jokes are no longer funny and he wished he had been ahead of the curve by casting diverse actors for his film Notting Hill. Speaking of the casting, the former head of the Royal Shakespeare Company says white actors are currently struggling to find work in the industry. Joining me now is entertainment journalist Rebecca Twomey. What do you make of Richard Curtis's comments, Rebecca? And why has he come out with all this now?
Well, exactly. And can I first say, was it ever funny to laugh at someone fat, particularly women?
Yeah, it was.
I'm not sure if it was.
Yeah, it was. It was funny.
Was it
yeah,
funny?
Still is.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, Bridget Jones in her pants. I mean, can we also just say with the Bridget Jones character, I don't think Curtis can take full responsibility for a woman's literary works. And I know I'm not going on a feminist rant to you, Kev, I absolutely promise this, but Helen Fielding was the writer of Bridget Jones's Diary, and she was the one that talked about 9.5 stone being, overweight and the rest of it. So I don't think we can exclusively blame Curtis for this. So the reason he came out and said this was at Cheltenham Literary Festival while he was being interviewed by his daughter, who is a feminist writer, and she called him out on it. And I think perhaps fairly so, but I don't think, Curtis can really be held to account for 90s diet culture and the way we do like to perhaps criticise people that aren't perfect and are on TV. So, I mean, this is the time of Bridget Jones's Diary in this film was, the late 90s, which was when Kate Moss was the pinnacle of beauty, which she is a beautiful lady, but her physique, her being very, very slim, was the fashion. Clothing was designed. I remember being a young, woman in those days and being quite heavily affected by this and thinking, well, hang on, Bridget Jones isn't all that big and all that fat. And then he's also talking about, in Love Actually, Martin McCutcheon. Now, she was cast as a character.
Rebecca, does any of this matter? I mean, if a joke's funny, it's funny. All this upper middle class hand wringing. Oh, I'm sorry, I come from a public school, undiverse background, and I shouldn't have done all this, and I shouldn't have made jokes about people being fat. Well, really, does it matter that much? And why can't we make jokes about people being fat? We always did. Why suddenly can't we do it?
It's we suddenly can't do it. It was of its time, is what I'm saying to you. It was of a time when there was a particular aesthetic that always is in beauty, and particularly around women and female characters. Men have it too as well. We do laugh at men who are overweight, rightly or wrongly. I mean, look, Kevin, you know me well enough. We have the right to laugh. I believe in the freedom of speech. But the fact that Curtis has come out and said this, in hindsight, he thinks that probably wasn't the best thing to do because it has a wider impact. But I don't think he's exclusively responsible for this. But with diversity now, we do want to champion lots of different people. But we're not just talking about jokes and feelings. We're talking about health and the well-being of our young people. Love Island has come under endless scrutiny for only focusing on a certain aesthetic. Young men with six packs, young women with, lots of filler and all the rest of it. And that causes quite an outcry. And it's not really that dissimilar to poking fun at a woman who's actually quite a healthy weight. And I think that's a bigger problem than whether or not we're laughing at a joke or not.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how it's done. You don't want to upset people. But I still think you can make jokes about, shall we say, the generously proportioned people amongst us. Why not? This is just some guy, retrospectively trying to act like, he's virtue signalling and saying, oh, I was wrong then, but I won't make that mistake again. His daughter gives him a lecture about the fat jokes and he says, oh, I suddenly realised she said to me, Scarlett, you can never use the word fat again. And this is Curtis. And wow, I thought, she's right. I mean, what a ridiculous thing to say on the part of both of them. Why can't you use the word fat? Why can't you make jokes about people? We always did make jokes about fat people. As I say, you don't want to go too far. You don't want to absolutely upset people. But do we have to live now under the tyranny of the joke police? You're not allowed to make a joke about that. You can't make a joke about that. Do one. Yes, I can. Stop telling me what I can and cannot do.
You absolutely can, and I want you
Thank
to,
you.
because I find you very fun all the time. I'm giving you permission. But what we're talking about here is we're looking backwards now, and I don't think it's helpful to censor, Roald Dahl books because words in the Twitter are offensive, or we go back in through history and say this is everything we've done wrong. What I wanted to say really was Bridget Jones and Love Actually were of its time. Now, was it appropriate for the time? That can be debated, but we're talking about now. And now it doesn't sit well in 1999, Bridget Jones's Diary, some of the content, but it sat well then. We laughed then. We found it a certain way then.
Because in those days we knew how to have a laugh. Now we torture ourselves and we just go, oh, you can't laugh at that, you can't laugh at that. I mean, why is life so much more rubbish than it used to be when filmmakers could just make a joke and their only criteria was, is it funny? If it makes people laugh, I'm going to make that joke. No, it's not, oh, well, that's a funny joke, but can we tell it? Oh, I don't think so. It's just absurd. We're sticking ourselves into an artistic straitjacket that is ruining comedy. I mean, what about the works of Helen Fielding? If Richard Curtis made Love Actually again, and my God, I wish he never made it in the first place, but would he make it the same? I mean, that's what he should be apologising. He's apologising, for the, shall we say, inadvertent racism in his films because all the characters are white, and he's apologising for the sexism, making jokes about fat women. I think he should apologise for making the films in the first place, particularly Love Actually, but that's a different issue. I mean, if he made these films again, would he make them differently and would they be any better? What about the works of Helen Fielding? Surely if he made the Bridget Jones's films again, which, by the way, I did think were pretty funny, he would have to honour her work as the author, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think really those books sit in that time. I have to agree with you, Love Actually is not my favourite, but a lot of people like it, and it was of its time. If you're making something now, it needs to reflect what happens now. But we know with a lot of woker films, people aren't going to the box office. I've referenced before the latest Top Gun film, which wasn't really overtly woke. It was cleverly done, but that was one of the highest grossing films of last year. So I think the appetite would have to change. I think diversity is very important. Representation of all body types, all races, that's very important. And that is something that needs to happen now artistically. But I don't think we can keep looking backwards. We just need to learn from what's happened before. Particularly, it's supposed to be entertaining. Films are supposed to be entertainment. They don't need to be hammering us all the time with an agenda and a culture and patronising us into how we should think. If you find a chubby joke funny, then so be it. If you find it offensive, don't watch that film. And that's very much how I stand on things.
Exactly. And if Richard Curtis goes on listening to his daughter Scarlett, who told him he must never use the word fat again, then he's never going to make an entertaining film again. Got a couple of texts in. Sandra texted in and said of Richard Curtis, why has being unhealthy and overweight become the desirable aesthetic for women? We don't desire skinny women, we desire healthy women. That's a good point. And Gillian Devon addressed this, if you will, Rebecca. She says, I don't understand Richard Curtis regretting the past. No need for woke. Bridget Jones was a blockbuster film, and we, including my many female friends, enjoyed the film. That's all that matters, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you need to enjoy it and take some of it with a pinch of salt. It's supposed to be aspirational. We want to see beautiful people on TV, as you know, Kevin, that's why you're on it. And we want to have something to aspire to. I think you just need to take it in context, but the weight situation, I think, can be more damaging to younger women. I will say for that part, because I was affected by Bridget being overweight at 9.5 stone when I was a young woman. Now, I don't care. I eat the cake and I drink the wine and I enjoy the film and I laugh when I want to laugh. But I think we do need to change that side of things now.
Yeah, I agree. You do have to be careful because some people at a certain age, when they're young, will take these films very, very seriously. And as I say, when I say, why can't you make fat jokes? I mean that, but I don't mean it to the extent that people get upset by it. Films shouldn't do that. But you take my point. If we can move on to another issue, really concerning diversity as well. A former director, the head of the Royal Shakespeare Company, who was himself responsible for a lot of this kind of diverse gender casting. You know, he filled Troilus and Cressida male parts with females. We all know about more and more females playing white parts, and a lot of actors of colour getting the parts of white people, traditionally white roles. And this guy now says that he fears that him and other theatre directors went too far, because now middle-aged white men can't get work in the acting community for love nor money. Do we need to go back a little in that respect? Do we need to create more jobs for that poor, put-upon section of the community, white middle-class males?
Oh, boo-hoo. Welcome to the life of a white female 40-plus actress. I'm sure they've had plenty to say for decades that women pretty much wiped off of the entertainment industry once they hit their 40s. I'm going to be a bit mean here. I mean, acting is an incredibly difficult profession. It's not something that no one's a stranger to that. But I also think it should be survival of the fittest. If you are hugely talented and hardworking, go for it. Women are writing phenomenal parts for themselves, older women. Why can't these guys do the same thing? I'm going to celebrate diversity in this one, and I'm not going to say, isn't it hard for them? We should have opportunities for absolutely everyone and the best talent for the role, irrespective of how you look.
Yeah, but when you say the best talent for a role, Rebecca, if you're talking about, what Shakespeare wrote, this is a female character. Why go out of your way to cast, or this is a male character? Why go out of your way to cast a woman in it? I mean, that is deliberately taking work away from middle-aged white men, isn't it? Why do that? Shakespeare wrote it. Shakespeare wrote it. He was quite a good playwright. Why not honour what he wrote?
Well, I think we can have it for everyone. I think we could do a traditional performance of, if it's a male role, with a male in that role and perform it at the Globe. And I also think we can do a modern performance for younger audiences who want to see different types of people in different roles. It doesn't have to be one way. We can still, I believe, honour the text and honour the performance and how it's done. And we can do an alternative performance for a younger audience or a woker audience. Can't we have it all? Isn't that what entertainment and culture is about? I don't see why it has to be so divisive. I don't see why we have to say, don't cast that person, do cast this person. We can have lots of forms of art.
Well, listen, as a white, middle-aged, middle-class man, it isn't easy being part of a persecuted community. Let me tell you, Rebecca. But seriously, let's talk about the big show. It starts tomorrow night on Disney+. It is, of course, Wagatha. It is Colleen Rooney's side of the Wagatha Christie drama. We've already heard Rebecca Vardy. Of course, she lost the case. What can we expect from this saga on television? I'm looking at the front page of The Sun now. She told Wayne at the height of his drinking, womanizing antics, "I just can't carry on." So she was very upset by what he was getting up to. But this is also, of course, her story of how she came to win the Wagatha Christie battle against Rebecca Vardy. I believe you were involved in this. Have you been interviewed on it? I mean, what can we expect from this series?
I mean, I'll call myself an expert on Wagatha Christie. It's been the pinnacle of my journalism career in recent years. It's a phenomenal case. What I would say with Colleen, though, is that I haven't seen this documentary yet, but Colleen is incredibly careful. She doesn't reveal very much. And I don't know if this documentary is going to give us the juiciness and the real minutiae of everything, because there's nothing really much left to say about Wagatha Christie. It all came out in court. We've reported it so heavily. Colleen wants to tell her story, but she's much more on a different plane in terms of the interview she did with the Sunday Times Style 2 weeks ago. She didn't really give anything away, and she never does. She's very clever. So we might hear a little bit more about things about her marriage, but we already know everything that's been going on. I think it's just her reputation management and showing that she's almost sort of slightly classier, shall we say, and that she's not going to divulge or mudsling too much.
A slightly classier wag. Indeed, she is. I really look forward to the series. Great to talk to you, Rebecca. Let's